We felt so betrayed, not just by the employee, but we betrayed ourselves, believing that human interaction was a given.
Yeah.
That is a direct quote from the owner of a small business in rural Michigan. And they are reacting to a single text message.
One text message.
Right, a text message that didn't just ruin their Tuesday, it unraveled their peace of mind and exposed a massive crack in their business foundation.
It is a really heavy sentiment to start with. It feels incredibly personal. But here is the shocking insight we are unpacking today, and really the reason we are looking at this specific case. That feeling of betrayal.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a bad hire. It wasn't just bad luck. It was a structural failure in the business architecture.
A structural failure triggered by a text message. I mean, that sounds like a bit of a dramatic leap. Usually we think of structural failures as, a bridge collapsing, not a scheduling dispute.
It does sound dramatic, but it's the absolute reality of what we call manual grit. When you rely on a good friend feeling or desperation hiring to fill a slot, you aren't managing a business. You are just holding it together with your own bare hands.
Just gripping it as hard as you can.
Exactly. And as we'll see, in a market like Lake City, Michigan population, only 5,000 failing to have guardrails in place doesn't just hurt your feelings. It threatens the entire goal of the 10-hour work week.
Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the Audio Lab. We are digging into the files of the precision laundry architect, Nicholas J. Gomez.
Right.
And the mission today for this deep dive is highly specific. We are exploring how you move from that manual grit, doing everything yourself, relying on gut instinct, to precision architecture.
That's right, because manual grit is the default state for most small business owners. It's sweeping the floors yourself because the cleaner didn't show up. It's reactive repairs. It's hiring someone just because you're desperate for a warm body.
Which is so common.
Oh, incredibly common. The mission of the precision laundry architect is to flip that entire model on its head. It's about building an operating system so robust that the owner can step back, not step in.
And we aren't talking your abstract theory here. We are looking at a real-world testing ground. They call it the Living Lab, which is actually a real business Super Kleen Laundry in Lake City.
Yes. And context is key here to understand the stakes. Lake City isn't some massive metropolis. It's a semi-rural market. Super Kleen is fighting for the exact same talent pool as Dollar General, Walmart, and McDonald's.
Which is a really tough spot to be in. If they lose a staff member, they can't just snap their fingers and find a replacement among 5,000 people. It's not like being in a big city where you put a sign in the window and get 50 applicants the next day.
Exactly. The nearest competitor laundromat is 15 miles away.
Yeah.
So yes, they have market dominance, but they also have extreme operational vulnerability.
Right, because if the manager quits...
Or if the manager fails, the owner is the one driving the truck. The owner is plunging the toilet. That is the very definition of high risk.
And they have the hardware. We're talking Dexter pocket dryers, Speed Queen high-efficiency dryers, Spider wash readers. But as we know, hardware doesn't manage people.
It definitely doesn't.
So the core question we are exploring today is, how do you use AI to turn a chaotic personnel crisis into a bulletproof operating system? Because, as we saw with the quote at the top, the chaos is very real.
It is real. And to understand the solution, we really have to dissect the failure. We need to talk about the Sue scenario.
Right, the Sue scenario. This is the heart of the manual grit problem. So let's walk through the timeline at Super Kleen. The owners, Nicholas and Rebecca, needed a manager, and they found Sue. Now, on paper, did she look like a winner?
On paper, absolutely. She had experience. She had been a manager at other locations. She knew the drills. She wasn't a rookie by any means.
But here's the trap. They hired her because, in their own words, they were desperate for a body. Rebecca was working a full-time job. Nicholas was running other businesses, plus driving for public transit. They just needed someone to watch the store.
And that desperation blinds you. It creates what the architect calls system latency.
System latency. I really love that term. Define that for us in this specific context.
So in computing, latency is the delay between an instruction and a transfer of data. In this management context, it's the delay between seeing a red flag and actually acting on it.
Ah, okay.
You ignore the data because you need the immediate relief of having a body in the building. You delay the hard decision because you're just tired. You trade long-term stability for short-term relief.
And the red flags with Sue were definitely there, but they were wrapped up in sympathy. She had significant veterinary bills. She was caring for animals, accumulating debt. Nicholas and Rebecca, being good people, felt for her.
Right.
They offered flexibility. They let her call in sick for animal care.
They relied on trust rather than an employee handbook. They were operating purely on that good friend feeling.
Yeah.
They thought, we are treating her well, so she will naturally treat the business well.
Which is a lovely human sentiment, but a pretty dangerous business strategy. It implies a reciprocal contract that doesn't actually exist anywhere on paper.
It's fatal for a precision architecture. Empathy is variable. It changes day to day. It changes based on how tired you are. A system needs to be static. A system has to be reliable regardless of how anyone is feeling that morning.
So the performance started slipping, and then came the breaking point, the Tuesday incident. Now, why was Tuesday so critical at Super Kleen?
Tuesday is a heavy day there. The pickup and delivery volume is high. It requires speed, physical strength, and logistical focus. Critically, the owners have specific team members. They purposefully keep off Tuesdays because the workload is simply too intense for them.
Right, they know their team's limits.
Exactly. They have architected the schedule to match the labor to the load.
Okay, so Sue, the manager, decides she can't make it. Maybe it's the animals, maybe it's burnout. But does she ask the owners? No. She texts them and says she already swapped shifts.
And here is the kicker. She swapped with one of those weaker team members. The exact person the owners knew couldn't handle a Tuesday.
She didn't ask. She told them it was covered.
Yes. And that is the exact moment the architecture collapsed.
Right.
It wasn't just insubordination. It was a complete undermining of authority. The owners felt like they couldn't say no because they were terrified of losing her. It created this Mrs. Boss dynamic where the employee is suddenly dictating the operational terms.
Nicholas sent a text back saying, okay, thanks, hope you feel better. But inside, they were fuming. They felt completely betrayed. And shortly after, Sue was terminated. But here is where I want to pause.
Okay.
Because most of you listening would probably just fire the employee, have a stiff drink, and post a now hiring sign on Facebook.
Right. That is the classic manual grit response. You clean up the mess and repeat the cycle. You blame the person. You say Sue was crazy or Sue was ungrateful. But a precision laundry architect doesn't do that. They stop and ask, where were the guardrails?
Guardrails. That's a recurring term in the architect's files. What does that actually mean here?
A guardrail is a physical or systemic barrier that prevents an error from happening. On a highway, it keeps you from driving off a cliff. In a business, a guardrail prevents an employee from making a decision that hurts the company.
Got it.
In Sue's case, there was no guardrail preventing her from swapping shifts without approval. The road was wide open, so she drove right off the cliff.
So instead of just venting, Nicholas and Rebecca turned to AI. They actually performed a system audit on their own failure. Now, be specific here. Did they just complain to ChatGPT?
No, and this is the really fascinating part. They treated the AI like a high-level consultant. They fed the entire scenario into the system. The text messages, their own feelings of betrayal, the history of the vet bills, all of it. They asked the AI to find their own weaknesses. They basically asked, how did we allow this to happen?
That takes some serious ego removal. Asking a machine to tell you why something is your fault.
It does. It requires complete objectivity. And the AI came back with 3 specific best practices to fix the architecture. This is really the core takeaway of the case study right here.
Let's go through these because I think this applies to anyone managing people, not just in the laundry industry. The first one was identify procedural blind spots.
Correct. The AI analyzed the friction points. It pointed out that the reason Sue felt comfortable dictating her schedule was that there was literally no policy preventing it. They lacked specific guardrails for attendance and specifically for vet cases. Because they didn't have a policy, they relied on empathy.
So the insight here is that empathy itself is a blind spot.
Unregulated empathy is a blind spot. The AI suggested that if you have a policy that clearly states shift swaps must be approved by management 24 hours in advance, you remove the emotion.
Right, it's not personal anymore.
Exactly. If there's a rule, you don't have to feel guilty enforcing it. It's just the rule. It protects the relationship because it removes the personal element from the decision entirely.
That leads directly to the second practice. Formulate best-case scenarios. Now, this sounds a bit corporate, but break it down for the small business owner.
It sounds corporate, but it's actually just about survival. This is about moving away from desperation hiring. The AI helped them draft high-standard criteria. Instead of asking, can you stand here and hold keys, which is essentially what they did with Sue, they started asking questions to determine cultural fit.
Like, what kind of questions changes the game in that scenario?
Like, how do you handle a situation where a customer is angry about a machine error? Or what does a clean facility look like to you? They shifted from hiring a body to hiring a guardian of the brand. They used the AI to simulate what a perfect employee looks like and then worked backward to write the job description.
Which is crucial because, and we actually missed this detail earlier, after Sue was gone, they found out she hadn't just been swapping shifts, she had actively been complaining to customers.
Exactly. Toxic complaints about pay, about treatment. She was literally poisoning the customer base while on the clock. The AI analysis showed that if they had strict operating procedures regarding workplace conduct and attitude, if they were hiring for culture first, they likely would have caught this red flag before she ever stepped behind the counter.
So the best case scenario isn't just wishful thinking, it's a filter.
It's a filter that prevents pollutants from entering your water supply. If you don't filter for attitude, you will eventually have a toxic spill in your business.
Okay, the third practice from the audit, automated pulse checks. This seems to be the one that actually enables that 10-hour work week goal.
This one is the game changer. You cannot know the business pulse if you have to be physically present to feel it. That's pure manual grit. If you have to walk in to see if the floor is clean, you're an operator. The architect uses AI to handle responses and track data remotely. The system alerts you to anomalies so you don't have to be there watching over someone's shoulder.
It's the difference between being a babysitter and being an owner.
Precisely. The AI revealed that the betrayal wasn't really Sue's fault, ultimately. It was the owner's fault for believing human interaction is a given. You need guardrails that function whether you are standing in the store or not. You need a dashboard, not a gut feeling.
So they fire Sue, they audit the system, but now they're down a manager in a town of 5,000 people. How do they actually run the store without falling right back into the grind? This is where we get into the digital architecture.
This is the fun part. This is the software stack that completely replaces the human dependency. You have to imagine Super Kleen not as a laundromat, but as a data center that just happens to clean clothes.
Okay, paint the picture for me. What are the actual tools? Because I know a lot of people listening are thinking, I can't afford some massive enterprise software suite.
And you really don't need one. First, you have the frontline Bella, also known as Hey Rosie. This is the AI receptionist.
An AI receptionist? Wait, is this just a glorified answering machine?
Far from it. This is an active agent. Bella handles the commercial accounts. She answers all those repetitive questions like, what time do you close, or how much for a comforter, and she handles 247 customer service.
Why is that specific piece so critical?
Because every time the phone rings and you have to answer it just to say, we close at 9, you are suffering from what the architect calls unproductive consumption.
Unproductive consumption. That sounds like an economics term.
In the precision laundry architecture vocabulary, it usually refers to utilities. Gas or water used without a paid cycle, basically waste. But here, Nicholas applies it to labor and energy. Emotional energy spent arguing over a text message is unproductive consumption.
Ah, I see.
Time spent answering, are you open, is unproductive consumption.
Okay.
Bella completely eliminates the noise, so the owner only deals with the signal.
So Bella handles the talk. What handles the walk?
Home base. This replaces the chaotic text messages entirely. It handles time management, payroll, and HR scheduling.
So absolutely no more, I swapped with so-and-so via casual text.
Exactly. If it's not in home base, it doesn't exist. It acts as the central source of truth for staffing. It removes the he said, she said dynamic completely. It's a digital guardrail. The system physically prevents the chaos that Sue created because the swap wouldn't be valid without the digital approval.
And for the money, the actual revenue tracking.
They use Clean Cloud as the point of sale and spider wash on the machines themselves. This tracks revenue and turns. This allows them to calculate efficiency per cycle, or EPC.
EPC, break that down for the listener who maybe isn't a math whiz.
Efficiency per cycle. It's the primary metric for facility health. It calculates the exact utility cost of a single machine turned against its revenue. If you know your EPC, you know if you are profitable in every single wash. You don't need a manager to tell you if it was a good day. The data tells you. It turns the business into a math problem rather than a mystery.
And then, for the chaotic mind of the entrepreneur, they use Google Keep.
Simple but highly effective. That's the architect's task list. It keeps the strategic to-dos totally separate from the daily fires. It's all about compartmentalization.
There is a concept mentioned in the source material called the magic variable. I really want to touch on that. It sounds almost mystical, like alchemy.
It sounds mystical, but it's pure engineering. Think of it like carpentry. In manufacturing, there is something called kerf, the thickness of the cut a saw blade makes. If you don't account for the kerf, your measurements are always going to be off. It's invisible waste.
So in the commercial vended laundry context, what exactly is the curve?
The magic variable is finding those small adjustments that stop unproductive consumption. In the Sue scenario, the curve was the emotional energy and the loose policy that allowed a problem to fester. By tightening the guardrails, adjusting for the curve, they recovered that lost efficiency.
So the magic variable isn't just one specific thing. It's the mindset of finding the hidden waste.
Exactly. It's constantly asking, where am I losing energy that doesn't result in profit? Sometimes it's water leaking from a bad valve. Sometimes it's a toxic employee leaking morale. Both are waste. Both need to be engineered out of the system.
It's amazing how much of this comes down to mindset. We aren't just talking about washing clothes anymore. We are talking about lifestyle design.
That is the core vision of AIforlaundromats.org. It's not about laundry. It's about freedom.
The host, Nicholas, talks about this sharp distinction between being an owner and being an operator. I feel like a lot of business owners struggle with this. They wear the operator badge with pride. They like being the one who fixes the broken dryer.
And it's a brutal distinction to make. If you are sweeping the floor, you are an operator. If you are arguing about schedules via text message, you are deep in manual grit. You are an operator. The goal of the architect is to limit work to 10 hours a week, max.
10 hours? I mean, that seems impossible for a retail business. A laundromat is a physical space. Things break, toilets overflow.
It is impossible if you are reactive. It is impossible if you don't filter the noise. But if you focus on filtering the noise to find the ROI, it becomes achievable. You have to build operational infrastructure.
All right.
You need plumbers on speed dial who have access codes. You need cleaners who check in via an app. You need Bella answering the phones. You need a system that runs the business while you just run the system.
So Sue leaving wasn't a disaster at all. It was a catalyst.
It was the best thing that could have happened to the living lab. It forced them to realize that their good friend feeling was actually a massive liability.
Yeah.
It forced them to build a system that doesn't care if it's Tuesday or if the manager has a vet bill. The system simply runs.
It's a really powerful lesson. We often think being a good boss means being lenient. But maybe being a good boss actually means being clear.
Clarity is kindness, and in business, clarity is profitability. When you have clear policies generated and audited by AI, you aren't being mean. You are being precise. You are protecting the business so we can actually continue to employ people, hopefully people who are a much better fit than Sue.
Precision laundry architecture, it really does fit. It's building a structure that stands up even when the weather gets rough.
And when you are in a small town like Lake City competing with the giants, you absolutely need that structure. You can't outspend Walmart, but you can out-efficient them. You could be smarter, faster, and much more automated.
So for everyone listening, whether you own a laundromat, a coffee shop, or just manage a team at a larger company, this transition from reactive to precision is the key.
Stop reacting to the text messages. Start building the handbook.
Dealing with Sue's text was the symptom. The lack of an AI-audited policy was the actual disease.
Correct. And the cure is moving from manual grit to the living lab mindset. Test, document, automate.
I love that. Test, document, automate. It sounds so simple, yet it requires so much discipline to actually execute.
It's the only way to get to that 10-hour work week.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just buying yourself a stressful, low-paying job.
So here is a question for you to chew on as you go about your week. It's a bit provocative, but that's why we are here doing these deep dives. Are you running a business or are you just watching the store?
Ooh, that cuts deep.
If your business relies on you being there to put out fires, if it relies on you answering the phone to say we close at 9, you haven't built an architecture. You've built yourself a job, and probably a very stressful one.
A job with all the risk and none of the freedom.
Exactly. This has been the Audio Lab, where we take the manual grit and turn it into precision.
And before we go, if you want to see the exact prompts Nicholas and Rebecca used, I'm talking about the actual words they typed into the AI to audit their policies and fix this Sue scenario, you can find them.
Yes, head over to AIforlaundromats.org. You can get the case study, and you should definitely sign up for the newsletter, The Lowdown. They share these experiments from the Living Lab every single week.
It's absolutely worth a read. The data is real, and the prompts are copy-paste ready.
Stop putting out fires and start building your architecture. We'll catch you in the next deep dive.